Education is changing faster than ever. We can't ignore the research that shows instructional practices rooted in evidence lead to better outcomes for students and stronger school communities. At Educational Innovation 360, we partner with educators and leaders to elevate teaching through personalized instructional coaching, data-driven professional development, and student-centered teaching strategies.
With Transform Ed Consulting, we bring deep expertise in strategic planning, organizational transformation, and leadership development, ensuring the whole system is aligned for success, equity, and sustainable improvement.
Together, our goal is simple: to support schools and districts in transforming learning so that every student and educator can flourish. Stay informed, stay innovative, stay student-centered. Subscribe to Educational Innovation 360's YouTube channel to get the latest news and updates.
I'm David Johnson from Transform Ed Consulting, and I have as our guest today, Robert D. Webb. Robert, tell us what the D means.
It means David, as in David Johnson.
And do we know the background of the word David, the name David? Do you know?
From the biblical text of David, King David from Israel. He's one of my heroes. Yes, sir.
And it means beloved one. So
Beloved.
You and I are both beloved ones.
Awesome. There we go.
Well, let me formally introduce you. Robert D. Webb, Master of Education, is the founder and principal consultant of Webb's Educational Building Blocks, LLC. Following a 29-year career in Texas public education, including 23 years as a campus and district administrator, Robert now partners with educational leaders to strengthen organizational culture, develop leadership capacity, and improve student outcomes. Through his Stewardship Test framework and covenant leadership philosophy, he equips leaders with practical strategies to confront reality, build trust, and create sustainable systems that help schools and organizations thrive under pressure. Thrive under pressure. What does that mean? What types of pressure do you mean? Testing pressure, keeping up the scores, meeting all of the state standards?
All kinds of pressure. We got pressure from school boards because they have their own agenda each member when they come on the board, and you have to deal with those issues as they present themselves. And they always don't present until you're under pressure. Something come up, some parent got disgruntled about something, and that pressure shows up at the last moment. Right now we have attendance pressure, especially here in Texas where we're at, with funding based on that and declining population growth and the spread of population into more populated areas and other kinds of pressure. There's pressure daily from different things. As a campus administrator, district administrator, new fire all the time.
Yeah, and understand that you're a jack of all trades. You've done a number of things in education, and when you were in the central office, you were essentially the assistant or associate superintendent.
Yes, sir. Yes, I've been a campus principal most of my career. I have served as a district transportation director. One time when my emotional intelligence wasn't where it was, and I got crossways with the board, they moved me to transportation director from my campus principal position. So I got to spend a year out at the bus barn trying to make sure the district operated well and make sure we got our kids to school on time and back home again. And I spent another year as executive director of curriculum instruction and assessment, which has a whole long title. I used to tell the board I'm the executive director of CIA.
CIA. Okay. All right. Because that's curriculum instruction and assessment. There you go.
Yes, sir. Cool. Yeah, I had a lot of responsibility and no authority. I had to influence a lot of people to try to do the right things and make a change, but I had no authority to do anything.
Well, I once had responsibility for the bus barn, and I like that. I like working with the drivers. In fact, I know how to drive a bus.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I used to go on their routes with them and just to see what they were doing and to get a feel for what their lives were like. I liked being responsible for the bus barn.
Yeah, I enjoyed that year. It was good. During the middle of that time, they came back to me and said, well, can you be DAEP principal too? Okay, Discipline Alternative Educational Placement Center. But we had a situation where they needed somebody to take over in November. And so I go out there at 5:30, get the buses started, make sure all my drivers showed up and everything was running, and go report to the campus and make sure that we had the kids going. And at the end of the day, go back out to the bus barn and make sure all the buses made it home. Yep. Make sure any kids who missed the bus got a ride home from there. So,
yeah, I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. Wow. The topic of title of our topic today is the war with reality and the 7 culture killers. We have 4 bullets: why good cultures begin to decline, the 7 culture killers, the stewardship test, leading lasting cultural change. Where would you like to start, Robert?
Let's go ahead and start with why good cultures begin to decline.
Well, first, what is culture? And then you got to also tell us what good culture is, because culture is culture. And just like you say, quality, but you can have good quality, you can have bad quality. So what's culture, and then what is good culture?
First and foremost, culture is whatever you accept as the leader, whatever you allow to happen every day on your campus, what you fail to address or do address, that creates culture. Culture is the pattern of behaviors an organization continuously accepts, reinforces, and reproduces. So that's your culture.
Interesting. Interesting. I have been working under the concept or the belief that culture is the underlying reasons of why we do what we do. You know, they say the difference between culture and climate. Climate is how you feel when you walk into the school building. Culture defines why you do what you do. It's the underlying, maybe not even spoken, underlying things of reason for why we do what we do. So what is your thinking about that? Is this defines why we do what we do?
It does. It defines what you do and how you do it every day. What you see daily when you walk through the building, how kids and teachers interact, how the principal and the teachers interact, how the principal and the students interact, how the principal treats the parents, and how teachers expect to treat parents, and how your front office staff, your anybody you have working for the campus, how they interact with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word I'm looking for.
And then what would be good culture then?
A positive culture would be one in which everybody comes to work, may not have the best day, but they're glad to be at work, because maybe that's not a place where they have a negative day. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's always hunky-dory and positive. It just that we know how to get along. We can engage with each other, and at the end of the day, come to a reasonable, common way of moving forward.
Now, would good culture, or I should say, what effect would culture have on those pressures that you described earlier?
So thinking about right now, with all the issues we have with attendance and the necessity of attendance, why do your kids want to be at your school? And what are you doing to make sure the families feel like your school is a safe environment? What are we doing to make sure your teachers you have the best teachers you can hire? But we also know we have a teacher crisis in the fact that we're not producing a lot of great teachers, and teachers, especially between that 5 and 10 year mark, in the middle, the backbone of our staff, they're the ones that are leaving the profession at a faster rate, and we're retiring those on the far end.
Mm-hmm.
So how are we maintaining, retaining teachers? What are we doing to keep them going and still producing the quality product that our community expects?
And when you say why good cultures begin to decline, why do they begin to decline?
They don't. It's usually not a catastrophic event. There's not usually one thing that leads to it. It's cultural drift, things that we let slide here, there, and yonder. That we have a great teacher, but she's always late. But we also know that teacher is an English teacher, and I may never find another one, especially in a small town. But even in the big towns, you don't know who you're going to get, especially in December. You know, where we're going to find that teacher. And so if I go and pick on her every day about, not, and that's what it feels like sometimes, picking on people, when you're really just holding them to the standard. But if you don't go and address it, then that teacher down the hallway thinks it's the same thing. Oh, I guess it's okay. We don't have to show up on time. Or if you don't support that teacher who does show up on time, especially one next door to the teacher that doesn't, and has to cover that class every morning for 5 minutes while waiting on her to show up or him to show up to get his business together and get organized and get going. Those things cause cultural drift. Mm. And that's just one example. But,
Robert, I'm going to hit you with one.
Yes, sir.
Of course, you know your basic psychology. You reinforce behaviors that you want to continue, and you punish behaviors that you want to cease happening. So, as a principal, which approach do you find is most effective?
I think it's both.
Go on.
First, you got to reinforce those that are doing the right things for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. And that's got to be constant, and that's hard because we are, or at least I am, I won't say everybody, I'll say I am prone to seeing the negative and having a tendency to lean towards the negative to try to have to, fix or whatever. But if you don't go by and say, hi, thank you for being here on time, I appreciate it. I'm glad you're here every day. You always get your business taken care of. Your kids are great. Your classroom management's handled. I never had to worry about your classroom, and you know how much stress that takes off me. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. If you never tell them that, they don't know. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't prone to do that on a regular basis. And so I'm telling on myself. But also, if you don't go down the hall and address that other issue, everybody else notices that you haven't addressed that issue. Whether they tell you or not, they know. And therein lies the problem.
Yeah. In fact, I was getting ready to ask you, do you do the hall walk thing, management by walking around?
Yes, sir. Sam Walton. Yeah, management by walking around. It was my favorite way to do. But my first job every morning was to meet and greet the students. Mm-hmm. I needed to check those students before they walked in the building to make sure that whatever's coming in the building wasn't going to go into a teacher's classroom and blow up all over me back in my office anyway. If I could address it at the door, that was a lot easier. Mm-hmm. If I could tell they'd already had a bad day, something happened with a girlfriend in the parking lot, or they had a fight with their parents the night before, I could see it on their face. I could talk them down a little bit before they walked in the classroom and blew up all over one of my teachers for addressing them about something they need to be addressed about.
Yeah.
But then I always try to get one day a week where I typically served on small campuses, so I get the counselor or somebody else come cover that spot.
Mhm.
And I go walk the hallways and greet teachers and make sure everybody's actually in their rooms and see who is that one person who's late every day that I never catch because I'm always out there at this door and they come in the other door so they can avoid me.
Yeah. Now, earlier you spoke about cultural decline and you said it's culture drift. So how does one address that? How do we get things back on track, back centered rather than drifting?
So that's where you you have to recognize there's a problem first. And that sometimes that's, as I saw a quote this morning, it says reality whispers. It doesn't always shout. It doesn't start shouting until the consequences come. So it'll whisper at you, but if you're not paying attention, you miss those whispers. I had an associate principal, the last high school I worked at down in Andrews. His name was Seth Davis, another almost David. Seth Davis, and he would come to me and say, that's SAR. And first time he told me, what in the world is SAR? I don't know what SAR is. He said, something ain't right.
That's a good one.
I said, okay. So what's not right? We discussed it and figured out, okay, well, we need to address it. Well, we need to figure it out. Well, if you don't catch what something ain't right, it's coming when it's whispering at you and nobody comes and flat out tells you, or you're not listening to, you got 2 or 3 teachers stop by and have a concern about something. And that's just them, that's their behavior, that's their attitude, that's their issue. That's no big deal. But the more times you hear that, you better start recognizing. It's kind of like I had this ISS teacher tell me one time that he used to have conversation with his students. He's a former sergeant major, so you can appreciate this. He would tell them, the first time somebody calls you a donkey, you can probably blow that off. He said, second time call you a donkey, you might start thinking, that's kind of getting interesting. I better think about that. So the third time call you a donkey, you better turn around and start looking for your tail. So it's the same idea. The third time somebody tells you something, you better figure out what's going on.
Okay. SAR.
SAR, something ain't right.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Well, let's talk about the 7 culture killers.
So let's go down this path. You still ain't right, and you hadn't noticed. You missed the whispers. So now reality is going to start yelling at you. First, it's going to start with a war with reality. You're starting a war with reality is what it is. You have chosen not to pay attention to what reality has been telling you. And so we're going to start down a path. And war with reality is if you've declared war with reality, you don't even know it. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you have chosen it. Maybe you looked at the data that just came in. Your school's a C, but you felt like everything should have been better than that. And that's just the state. They changed the scores this year. They changed they did something down in Austin. That's on them. That's how that works. And we've all done it. I've sat there and done it. In fact, I was remembering a little while ago, many years ago, I was principal at the middle school, and I got called over to the high school principals, over to the high school to meet with the service center folks. And we went in there and sat down, me and the high school principal, and we're both, sitting back. Okay, we think we're doing great, both of us. We knew our elementary had been in trouble for years, but we had kept our campuses out of trouble. I made sure I got those kids as far as I could get them before they left, and he kept them on. And he got them through graduation. We thought we were doing good. And the service center rocked our world. He said, "Y'all know y'all about to be in F campus, right now?" We're both looking back. What? Nobody had told us. We hadn't seen the warning signs. We started war with reality. And we didn't realize we were on the warpath at all. We were in denial, and we're shell shocked. And they were there to help us get off to recognize that reality had been whispering. We hadn't been listening.
So when you say service center, I think we should clarify that it's the Educational Service Center, and there are a number of them all around the state of Texas.
Yes,
and they're partly affiliated with the Texas Education Agency. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay. Yeah, okay. They're kind of independent and dependent. Both. Right. They kind of do both. They're the filter for TEA to the districts.
Okay. And how would the Education Service Center, ESC, have a sense of your schools headed toward an F before you would? Weren't they using the same test results, or what were they using?
Yeah, they were looking at the same data, but they were just seeing it from a different light than we were. Of course, we were seeing it through our rose-colored glasses and what our teachers were doing every day, and what we felt like everything was going well, and we've been battling. We've won every battle so far. Why would we lose this one? Okay. And they were concerned because they saw it differently.
Now, how did that contribute, or would that contribute to the 7 culture killers?
Well, that was just a recognition of the fact I was in a war with reality and didn't know it.
Okay.
That's the first thing. If you don't know you're in a war with reality, you're going to continue down the 7 culture killers.
Okay.
And the first one is communication drift.
Okay.
That's where you do something like you post your vision at the first year, vision and mission, and that's the last time it's discussed or thought about or a decision made against it or anything else. Mm-hmm. You met the board requirements, you check that off. There it is. Everybody saw it. Everybody agree with it. Yeah, all right, we're good.
Okay.
And carry on.
Okay. All right. That's number 1. What's number 2? Number
2 is, let me go back to my notes. I apologize. Miscalibrated accountability.
Ooh, that sounds complicated.
Well, it's akin to communication drift. The example I'm going to give you is I'm a young principal, and I think know how to do these things. So I got a couple of people that are going back to our prior example. Got a couple of people that are showing up late, but we're handling business otherwise. I send a reminder email to the whole staff that hey, our start time is this time every day, and our end time is this. Please make sure you're here. Appreciate y'all. Thanks. Have a great day. Now, everybody who does their job on time every day, they're upset. Like, well, was I late one day and I forgot? I knew, and they come by and ask you, was there a reason I got that email? I'm sorry, I didn't realize. And then about the third time, you're like, oh no, you have 100 conversations when you should have had one, maybe two conversations face to face and got it over with.
That's complicated. That's complicated because of what we were saying earlier about basic psychology, reinforce and punish.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that I've heard along the way was and I know you heard this one too, praise in public and punish or in private.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So how would you juggle those responsibilities or those phenomena when it comes to praising in public and chastising or punishing in private?
That's where I got better. I stopped moving. I moved from using shotgun emails, which I call that one I just described, to a sniper conversations.
Okay.
One-on-one conversations, either by the classroom first time. I go to their room. We had that conversation. We had a discussion. Let's address this. And maybe there's a legitimate reason.
Yeah.
How can I help you get this fixed so we can keep moving forward? Maybe, did you misunderstand something? Have I miscommunicated? There's something on our end that we can do to make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we escalate from there.
Yeah.
Closer it gets to my office, the more paperwork there is. And
yeah. Woo. All right. So what was that? Number 2 or number 3?
I've written number 3.
Okay.
The war of reality is where we began. We did communication drift where we failed to talk about things that need to be talked about on a regular basis, reinforcing it. We shot an email to everybody when we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And then we get some emotional leadership. We get upset. We have those 100 conversations, then we're mad because we realize that mad at ourselves, mad at everybody else, and then we pour that out on the wrong person because it's going to come out one way or the other. And it's whether you choose to steward yourself or,
Oh, Robert, you got me thinking real hard here. I hope you don't smell any wood burning. but. All right, you know that term is very, very popular. Compartmentalize.
Yes.
So, of course, we want to compartmentalize and not bring all our work home. But at the same time, while you're at work, there are times when we must compartmentalize.
That is
What's
correct.
the secret to compartmentalizing?
Well, to me, that goes back to covenant leadership, which is not on our agenda, but we talk about. That's where you have to lead yourself. You need to get up every morning and address 4 areas in your life: your spiritual life, your emotional life, your mental life, and your physical life. Spiritually, I try to when I wake up in the morning, I try to come up with at least 10 things I'm grateful for before my feet hit the floor. Just so I get my mind right with God before I touch the floor. And I tell God it's going to be a good day, and then I move forward from there. And then I, try to read my Bible, do some other things, which requires me getting up early in the morning, which is hard to do when you're a principal or whatever else. And when you've been up all night the night before at events or whatever else, a bus trip or an accident or a fire alarm went off or who knows what happened, because there's always something. You're on 24/7. But you got to make some time for yourself to fix yourself before you can serve your people.
Oh, good one. Yeah, so it's like you're centering yourself.
Yes, sir.
And you would say that helps you compartmentalize. And well, I used to always say there's a time and a place for everything and put things in their place. So
yes, sir.
Yeah. And if you have an issue with a teacher or someone at work, put it in its place.
Yes, address it before. Yeah, either put it on your calendar or address it that day, but don't let it ride. Make that to-do list for the next day before you leave the office so that you know what you're walking into.
Understood. Okay. Oh man, we're having too much fun here. We're running out of time.
Yes, I know.
Where would you like to go?
We'll try to run through these others. I'll just give you some short examples. After emotional leadership, we have operational inconsistency. All of a sudden, something comes down from central office, or you decide one day, you wake up one day and, hey, we're going to change direction, but you don't give everybody the understanding of why or what's going on or what changed. And so that causes confusion and frustration on the part of your staff, and nobody understands where they're going.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they say you can get people to do almost anything if they fully understand the why.
Yes. But if you don't appreciate, you don't go into detail about what that is, that causes problems.
Yeah. Which
leads to trust erosion. People's trust in you slowly but surely erodes away when they get either an emotional response from you that wasn't the one that they were expecting or what they had earned. People are going to come at you frustrated and whatever else. You got to maintain your composure, even though you want to lose it in front of them, but you're the leader. You don't want to get paid to do that. So you got to take it that way. But when you don't, or when you go off on the wrong person, it wasn't even their fault. It had nothing to do with them, but you choose your action that causes erosion of trust. And then the final thing is just you start tolerating behavior you wouldn't want to, because either you're protecting your ego or out of fear, you don't want to go and face the consequences of what needs to be addressed.
Let's have an example of that.
Well, we can go back to, you got that great English teacher who's always late. And you have put off having that conversation because I don't know where I'm going to find another English teacher. I'm sure there's a legitimate reason she's not here. But in the meantime, your best math teacher who's next door, having to cover her class every day, is getting frustrated and more frustrated and more frustrated. And you get the resignation letter in March you weren't expecting. And the person you really need to address was the English teacher. But that math teacher's resignation letter's laying on your desk, and they quit back in December. They resigned in March, and they're leaving in May. And now you got 2 people you got to replace instead of 1.
And then protecting your own ego or protecting your persona, your
fear, whatever fear got in the way, or your pride, whichever one, didn't allow you to do what needs to be done. So every time you run into one of these problems, that leads to the stewardship test.
Go ahead.
So that stewardship test is at any point during these 7 culture killers, during this fight with war with reality, you can stop at any point and say, well, I'm seeing a lot of problems. I need to take a step back, investigate what's going on, and then take appropriate action based on what I've discovered.
Now, is that a self-assessment or is that a situational assessment?
I would say both, depending on the situation. It could be a side of, you can go war with yourself with reality. You can look at the scale every morning and it doesn't change, and go out and eat your food and then wonder why the scale didn't change the next day and still be in the same situation, right? And at any point, you got to make that same decision. Event plus response equals outcome. That's a statement from Brian Kite and Focus 3 group. Any event and an outcome are only 2 parts you don't have control over. Your response to any event and the outcome that comes after is based on your response.
Well, you mentioned your stewardship test framework. So is that something you've created?
It's something I'm working on building. The stewardship test framework leads to the covenant leadership framework. Covenant leadership is lead yourself. And we talked about that spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Serve the people. Because once you got to lead yourself, the first unit of leadership is always 1, right? And that's yourself. Once you can lead yourself, then you can serve the people. And then you do that by holding them accountable and praising those who are doing the right things and maintaining the standards. As we know from military background, both of us have, it's always mission first and people always. You got to hold both of them.
Okay. So with the stewardship test, is that comprehensive in that it's looking at yourself as well as looking at the situation and the people with whom you're working?
Yes, because the situation, ultimately you're the leader. It's going to come back to you anyway. So it's ultimately what mistakes or what evidence did I miss? What did I not look at? What does it require me of now? What is it? It's been whispered to me. What does it want? What is reality looking for me to do? And is it the data that's telling me something that I've just been blowing off thinking they put in the wrong numbers, or that I don't trust this data because it came from TEA, or whatever. You got to still go back. Okay, where did I miss that point? Or what do I need to? What does it require me now to step forward in a different way and do something different?
And that's your reality test.
Yes, sir. It goes back to the Stockdale paradox.
Wow.
Going back to Admiral Stockdale's
right.
Have to embrace your brutal reality and have a faith that you can change the outcome.
Which leads to our next bullet: leading lasting cultural change.
So leading lasting cultural change means that we have to really follow the Stockdale paradox and take the stewardship test, step up in our covenant leadership framework, lead ourselves, serve our people, and then steward the mission. Steward the mission means that I'm going to take the resources and the authority and responsibility I've been given, and I'm going to do my best to leave it in a better position and place than when I found it.
Steward. Of course, you've heard steward leadership. What is steward leadership, particularly in this regarding the stewardship test and leading lasting cultural change?
So it's a faithful management of people, resources, influence, and mission entrusted to our care. Like I say, it's us taking on our responsibility. So from the covenant leadership standpoint, I think of our leadership roles as more than just a contract. Contract says, I agree to do this, this, and this, and you agree to pay me this, this, and this. Covenant leadership says, I take this on as my responsibility. I own it. This is mine. This is my reputation and everything else that goes with it. And I want to leave this in a better place, in a better position, and make sure that I'm taking care of the people in a better way. I'm taking care of myself, and I'm taking care of what you've given me to steward to the best place I can be. For my career, probably most of yours, we were in public education. We were stewarding people's money, and their greatest asset was that kid walking down the hallway.
Right.
But so was every one of those teachers. Every one of those teachers was somebody's kid that we were also taking care of. And how we treated them every day and what the end result was on us, on how we ended that up.
I hear you. Well, Robert, this has been a great conversation, and it could go on forever, given the common experiences that you and I have had. But unfortunately, we do have a clock, and we must meet the demands of our clock. So if you must summarize all this into a takeaway, what would that takeaway be?
My first thing would be recognize the signals, recognize what reality is whispering to you. Get somebody to bounce those ideas off of you with, whether that be somebody in your building, somebody outside your district you can talk to. Of course, David and I would be great people to have a conversation with, but have a conversation with somebody about what the reality is whispering to you before it starts yelling at you with consequences, because consequences are painful. And I've lived all of them. All 7 of those I've done, and that's why I can talk about them, because I screwed them up. And that's where I learned the stewardship test for failure.
I hear you. So what will be the call to action? What do you want people to do with this knowledge?
I want you to go back and truly listen to what you're saying. Look at your data, look at your culture, and if you need help, give us a call. And
when you say give us a call, how do people contact you?
You can reach me at www.webbblocks.com, WEBBBLOCKS.com, or robert@webbblocks.com, or I'm also LinkedIn as Robert D. Webb, and I'll be glad to have a conversation with you there. Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Well, thank you for being a guest on our live chat, and I should say hello and goodbye to Robert D. Webb, Master of Education. He is the founder and principal consultant of Webb's Educational Building Blocks, LLC. And I'm David Johnson of Transform Ed Consulting, and thank you for being with us today.